Hello friends and welcome to Sustainable Prepping. My name is Brecky and this is your home for fear-free emergency preparedness on the internet. If you are looking for emergency preparedness, if you are looking for feminist homemaking, if you are looking for sustainable lifestyle conversations without the conservative political rhetoric, without the conspiracy theories, then this is your home. I am so glad to be back with you and to be celebrating that it is September. Here in the United States, that means it is Emergency Preparedness Awareness Month. That is kind of a whole mouthful. But yes, it is Emergency Preparedness Month here in the US, so I'm going to be going over my 5 fundamental areas of preparedness. We will talk about them more in depth as the month goes on, but I want to give you my quick cheat sheet. You can find this link down below. It'll be on my website, totally free for you. My 5 fundamentals all start with the letter F. 5F fundamentals, nice alliteration for you to remember, especially if you are new or you're wanting to create a plan that is tailored to you and your family and your needs. These 5 fundamentals will serve you for any crisis, any catastrophe, any situation you are planning for. So without further ado, let's get into it. So the first fundamental is food and water storage. I did link them together. I like the F's, food and water, but also when we think of what we're going to consume, we think of food and water. Now, you can live up to 3 weeks without food. If you are fit and healthy, you can only live 3 days without water. So realistically, your number 1 priority should always be to have water and water filtration. The rule of thumb is 1 gallon per person per day, plus a little extra for cooking and cleaning. My recommendation, for example, is to round up a gallon. So if you have a family of 4, it's 4 gallons per person per day. I would tack on a 5th gallon per day for cooking and cleaning. Of course, you don't need that much if you are an individual or only 2 of you. You would need more if you are a larger family. But roughly speaking, 1 gallon per person per day, plus about a gallon of cooking and cleaning for an average sized family. If there's 10 people in your family, maybe 2 gallons of cooking and cleaning. You know your family best. But then start working on getting 1 day, then 3 days, then 7 days, with a goal of at least 7 days of water storage. That would be your first priority. Add on to that water filtration so that if you go through your water storage, you have a way to filter water coming in. You never know what contamination can happen. And as we're watching the aftermath of Hurricane Idalia here in the United States, they could have long-term issues with getting clean water. Having water filtration means that even once your water storage runs out, you can still have clean water. So we're going to do part 1A is going to be water storage, right? Part 2 is going to be food. So food and water. Your first goal is going to be to have 1 week's worth of food storage. If you are interested in knowing how to do this, I will leave a playlist of food storage linked down below, but I also offer a course for how you can get an entire month of food storage done in just 1 weekend. I'll leave that link down below as well. This is great if you want it kind of done for you. I can't go buy the food for you, but I can give you all the workbooks, all the recipe ideas, all the calendar plans for how you can get an entire month of food storage done if you have just 1 weekend to spare. That being said, you do want to plan 3 meals a day for 7 days, every person in your family, and I would add in a couple of snacks and comfort items. You can use all kinds of stuff. We will talk more about food storage, like I said, in the coming videos. But if you are brand new, don't feel bad about relying on processed and prepackaged foods. We're not looking for perfection. We are looking for easy calories. This can be peanut butter. This can be granola bars. This can be power bars. This can be little oatmeal packets. Just plan to have 3 meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, stuff you like, stuff you'll eat, and stuff that is shelf stable. The key with your food storage is that it cannot require refrigeration of any kind. It needs to be something you can easily consume, ideally something that if you had to, you could eat cold, although that's not a requirement, but it has to be something that can sit on your shelf for 6 months to a year or longer and be edible, okay? Because your plan is to create your food storage, have it separate from your pantry and in a place where you know, this is my food storage, I can grab it in an emergency. Having items that require no cooking is extra useful. There's all kinds of things you can get. Like I said, I'll link some extra videos if you need ideas, but think like canned tuna, right? And crackers. I said peanut butter and jelly, those sorts of things that you can easily just slap together and you have food. 1 week of water, 1 week of food, that's your first fundamental. Your second fundamental of preparedness is going to be first aid and medications. After you can feed and water yourself and your family, the next thing is you want to make sure you have the medications you need to stay healthy during your crisis. Now, this is going to probably require you to have some very thoughtful and very challenging conversations with your medical care provider. If you have a medication that you depend upon for your health, let's say you have a blood pressure medication, for example, you need to start having conversations about getting 1 or 2 weeks ahead on that medication and always having a backup. Now, depending upon the medication, you may be able to keep a backup separate for up to 3 months, 6 months even, and have it with your stash and just have a calendar alert that tells you when to cycle it out. For other medications, like if you are a diabetic and you have to have injectable insulin, you may not be able to do that. So planning with your care provider to have a week or more of your prescription medications on standby means that if there is a crisis, you are not going to have your health disrupted. You are not going to need to leave your house in the middle of a crisis situation to go get a life-needing medication. You'll be able to just hunker down at home. Plan to the best of your ability with your resources and availability to get at least 1 week or more of your prescription medications ahead. The second part of that, first aid and medications, is first aid. Now, everyone needs to have a robust medical kit. Even if you can't use everything in it, you may find someone who can in the event of a true crisis. We want to have more than just those little plastic boxes that you might pick up at the local store. Yes, we need Band-Aids. Yes, we need antiseptic. Yes, we need things like antibiotic creams and salves. We need burn creams. We need bug bite situations. We need gauze. We need a triangle bandage. Yes, all of those things we need. You should be adding to a medical kit like that particular gauze or gels for blood clotting, for example, to flush out a wound that is possibly infected. You might want to have tweezers, nitrile gloves. You will want to have over-the-counter medications for headache, but you'll also want to have it for diarrhea and nausea, vomiting, upset stomach, cold and flu, mucus, things to stop histamine reactions and any kind of potential reactions in your body to foods that you're eating, right? All of these over-the-counter medications, all of these more robust things that we take for granted, you're going to make sure you have a backup supply. These are not necessarily going to come with a pre-made medical kit, so keep that in mind. Now, if you're just starting out, don't worry about having things like skin staples and a suture kit and things like that. That can come later, but you will want to have as robust of a medical kit as you can afford to have, even if you don't know how to use everything yet, because you don't know when a crisis is going to hit, and you don't know who you might be with in a crisis who can put your medical kit to good use. So have a good working first aid kit, over-the-counter medications that you can use for a whole plethora of things, from allergies to cold and flu to nausea, vomiting, diarrhea to headaches, all of that stuff. Have your over-the-counter medications with your first aid kit that is for emergencies, and then also have, like I said, that 1 week of prescription medications. Your third fundamental is fuel and illumination. I've lumped these together because they are similar. Fuel is going to be cook stove fuel, but could also be a generator fuel if you choose to invest in a generator. Now, for this video, I'm going to focus on cook stove fuel. You are going to want a way to heat up your food and potentially boil water. And depending upon where you live, particularly if you are prone to cold snaps, you're going to want to have a way to warm your living environment, okay? Fuel to warm your living environment. This is where I'm going to have to stress that you need to know your most likely dangerous situations. If you're not someplace that often gets really cold snaps, you may not want to focus on heating your home. You might need to focus on fuel to cool your home or just fuel for cooking. But this is a tailored space where you know you best, you know your resources best, and you know your potential for catastrophe best. So tailor this fuel portion to you. Everyone should have some way to heat up your food, particularly to be able to boil water. If you're using freeze-dried food, for example, it's going to add to morale. It's going to allow you to boil water in the event that you still need to do so and you've gone through your stored water. You're going to want to be able to have warm meals, maybe a cup of coffee, right? So having the fuel both to warm your living environment as well as to cook food will be part of your essential fundamentals. This will determine where you live, right? You can't have a propane stove in an apartment building, for example. So you may need to think about some creative solutions. Again, there will be playlists down below for more ideas on how to do this, but it is one of the fundamental principles. Along with fuel for heating and cooking is illumination, fuel for seeing. This is going to come in the terms of flashlights. It's going to come in terms of backup batteries for those flashlights, lamps, headlamps, candles. However you would like to illumine your environment, you're going to want to be able to see when it's dark. Think about what's most useful to you. If you are someone who does a lot of hiking, you may already have headlamps. Have a couple backups with the right batteries for those headlamps. If you're not someone who does a lot of that, maybe buy one big lantern and a couple small flashlights. Now, I do love headlamps because they give you hands-free, but if you are just starting out, grab a pack of cheapo flashlights and some batteries. Get them dedicated to your food storage. Do not rely on flashlights that you might use for something else. You don't know if you're going to misplace them. You don't want to be scrambling in an emergency. Have all of your food, your water, your flashlights, your first aid kit, if you can, have that all stored together so that you know where it is. Your fourth fundamental principle is going to be finances. And what I mean here by finances is cash. Cash is going to be king in the aftermath of a catastrophe. My recommendation to start with is to, as much as you are financially able, get $100 per person in your family. So if you are a family of 4, that's $400 of cash in small bills. That means 20s and smaller. If something costs $10, but you only have 20s, you'll be paying $20. So see if you can get a combination of 1s, 5s, 10s, and 20s in that range. If you can go a little bit higher, have $500, $600, $700, have the amount you would need to buy groceries for a month, for example. That's another benchmark, but have cash on hand. Have some of that stored with your emergency supplies, whether you have a bug out bag or you just have a closet or a box of storage with your food supplies and water supplies. Have some of that cash there. Have the other portion of that cash stored in a separate location. This just means that if someone does raid your stuff, not all of your cash is in the same place. But caveat, remember to know where your financial investments are. Don't lose the cash that you have stored. But having cash, again, in small bills, 1s, 5s, 10s, primarily some 20s, is going to serve you. You'll be able to buy gas with cash if the electricity is out. You'll be able to shop with cash if the internet is still down and not taking credit card machines. So have cash on hand. Again, some of it with your emergency preps and some of it in a second location, just in case someone tries to take your stuff. My fifth and final foundational principle, lots of alliteration there, is feces or sanitation. Yes, that's kind of a gross word, but I liked the alliteration. You need to have a plan for if the toilets are out. Now, in a really short-term situation, you can use water from a bucket to flush down your toilets, but after a while, that is not going to be a good use of your water storage. So my suggestion is to create an emergency potty. I will link a video to make sure that you can see how to make one. It's very easy. It's a project you can do in just a couple of hours, and it's not expensive. I think it cost me about $25 when I did it a few years ago, so it's not a huge financial cost to create an emergency toilet. But basically, it's a bucket, it's contractor trash bags, it's a potty seat, and it's cat litter. This is an important piece to figure out your sanitation. This is also not just about an emergency potty, but this is going to be how you clean yourselves in a long-term emergency. So you might want to pack some wet wipes or other things like that. This will include toilet paper. We all know, we've all lived through 2020. We all know how important toilet paper is. This is also going to be, what do you do with your food disposal in a long-term grid down situation? Do you have a plan for getting rid of food that could attract pests? Now, you don't have to have a huge plan, right? It could be extra contractor bags. It could be identifying a site that becomes your dump if the garbage isn't picking up, that's far enough away from your home. It could be adding in some bug, roach, pest killer to your preps so that it's dedicated and there in the event you need to spray in a long-term grid down situation to keep pests at bay. These are all things you should think about. But at the end of the day, sanitation for human waste and then sanitation for food and other waste are things you need to think about. They often get skipped in emergency preparedness planning, but I want to make sure that you don't miss this fundamental, crucial, everyday need. Have this as a part of your 5 fundamentals. Do not skip it. Do not save it for later. Have this as a part of whatever your personal plan is, and do not forget it. I really don't want to see you getting sick, having your water contaminated, or illness spreading in your community because you haven't figured out what to do with your human waste and your food waste. So dealing with waste, dealing with feces, that's the final F, but all kinds of waste products that you might be generating if you're sheltering in place long term is going to be something you need to think about and prepare for. So those are the 5 fundamental principles: food and water storage, first aid and medication, fuel and illumination, finances, and feces or sanitation. Those 5 fundamental principles are going to set you up for much more success than just creating a 72-hour kit or a 1-week kit. This is comprehensive, and once you have this base, you can add all kinds of specialized gear on top of it. You'll notice I don't include things like shelter. I don't include things like cutting tools or firearms, for example. That's because if you are sheltering in place, you don't necessarily need to focus on that. That is something you can add on once these 5 fundamentals are in place. And you can easily pick up one tarp and some paracord or duct tape and just add it in if you feel that is necessary. Things like personal protection are something you're going to have to discern for yourself, and maybe a topic I talk about later about how you make that discernment process. But for this video, I don't think it's actually a fundamental principle. It's sexy to talk about firearms, but I don't think it's actually a fundamental of emergency preparedness. These 5 principles absolutely are, and they will see you through more than 90% of the catastrophes you are likely to face. So what questions do you have? What do you want to add to these 5 fundamentals? What do you already have in place? And what are you going to start working on this month? I want you to take this checklist, this free checklist I'm going to provide. I will have this free list for you, and I want you to make your own personal plan. I want you to see what you don't have, what are you missing, and take September to make moves on these 5 fundamentals. Whatever you can, even if they are just getting an emergency potty and a week's worth of water in place, you'll be ahead of someone who doesn't have those things. If it's making a more robust food storage program, then do that. If it's increasing your first aid or maybe learning a first aid skill, go do that. But I want you to take September and make movement on these 5 principles. If you have them in place, you will be set to survive most of the catastrophes that we will face that require us sheltering in place. Comment down below, tell me what you're working on. Tell me what you would add. Tell me what you're gonna work on this month, and tell me how I can support you. You will find in the description a link to this foundational cheat sheet. I'm so excited to be sharing that with you. You'll also find the links to the videos that I've recommended, including a playlist on food storage principles, a link to my food storage in a weekend program. If you are interested in having that hand holding and getting an entire month of food storage done, and you can do it in just a weekend, I'll have that linked below. I will also have my inventory cheat sheet down there that you can grab if you want that extra kick in the pants, that extra hand holding to get all of your stuff in order, in line. We'll have all of that ready for you. Friends, I am so excited to be back and making videos. There has been a lot going on in my life. I will have a chatty video coming up later in the month where I talk about it all. But right now, I really want to spend these moments getting you excited about your emergency preparedness. I don't want it to be a chore. I don't want it to be scary. I do not want you falling into these mindsets of fear and political rhetoric and nonsense. I want you to feel empowered. I want you to be calm and confident. This is why I do what I do. So I'm excited to get back into these videos and encouraging you in this community. Y'all, I'm so glad to be back. I hope you were all doing well. And until the next video, happy prepping.